From being in toxic relationships to manifesting a person to then going back and forth with him to then manifesting a commitment with him to then manifesting marriage. This success story is going to contain it all. Hey guys, hope you're well. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing a success story which has all the roller coasters, which has all the back and forth, which has everything that somewhere any person who manifests a specific person or any person who is manifesting love is probably going to struggle with. So this video is going to be divided into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to be talking about my client's past. I'm going to be talking about how she went from being in toxic relationships to manifesting a new person and then to being in a full committed relationship with him. And in the second part of the success story, I'm going to be talking about how from that commitment, she went to marriage. So I'm recording in a different background, different setting today. I am not in my usual studio. You might hear some birds chirping behind me and things like that, but it's the new place. But I was just very inspired to post this success story as I recently got it and I was pondering over it. I was having a conversation with this client and I just needed to share it with you. So let's get into it. This is going to be slightly complicated timeline wise, but in my last success story, I shared thing in a timeline basis and you guys loved it. So I will do the same here. So let's get into this and let's start talking about this. So first, I will tell you a little bit of my client's past and then I will tell you when I met her for the first time. Because with this client, I have worked with her in two separate instances. I have worked with her for longer periods of times in two separate instances. So this client, she came from, and I'm not really going to talk about her household, her childhood and everything, because in her current actions, as she was in the failed relationships, it will be very evident that she was coming from a place where she didn't know much about love, where she didn't know much about relationships, and her default settings in relationships was to settle. So she was at the start in a very toxic and a very unhealthy relationship with this guy, right? This relationship started when she was very young and she was in this back and forth dynamic because at that time this was the only person who was showing her some affection in her life, and because he was the only person who was doing that in her mind and she thought I can never actually get it from anywhere else, she was constantly settling. So this guy from the very start was not treating her right, was actually being disrespectful, used to talk to multiple women, used to actually leave her on red, used to gaslight her and all these things. It was a very very unhealthy relationship for her. The reason that she was sticking around was not because she actually liked this person, but to a degree she had thought that if she leaves him, no one else can ever like her, because this is what she was taught through her parents, through her mother especially. And as she was in this situation, she just constantly knew this. She constantly knew this logically, but she didn't know this emotionally. So sometimes we know things in a logical basis, right? Just like I need to put up this boundary, I need to start my business, I need to start my work, and all these things. These are things that we know logically. These are things we know we need to do. But our emotions are telling us otherwise. Our emotions are telling us to settle, or our emotions are just too afraid to take the leap, right? In these moments, it's very important that we first learn to regulate our emotions, but also we start to act regardless of what our emotions are telling us. At the starting point, this can be quite difficult, but as you start to practice this more and more, you start to get very good at it, right? So this is from where my client started her journey. Now eventually she reached an age in her life where after a lot of advice from a lot of people in her life, she was told that you should get away from this relationship because this person was constantly cheating on her and she wasn't actually accepting that this can be her life. She finally got to a place where she realized that I deserve better, and this person wasn't even fighting for her. She was constantly settling here, right? So as this happened, she got out of this relationship, but as she got out of this left her with a lot of mental issues, especially about her conditioning when it comes to relationships and love. So she constantly thought that this is what love is supposed to be, relationships are supposed to be. And for the next 2 3 years in her life, she constantly used to be in these hot and cold situations. One reason being because she was constantly afraid that what if I get into a relationship and a similar thing happens? But on the other hand, she was also not really open to picking up men with whom things can work out. So she was constantly attracted to unavailable situations, constantly attracted to people who were unavailable. Why? Because it made her feel safe. It made her mind feel that even if a situation starts with this person, it wouldn't really end anywhere, right? So she spent 2 3 years doing this. Now, after she spent a lot of time doing this, she eventually started to work on herself. She was working on herself by herself. She started to get into manifesting. She started to learn about relationships and everything, and she attracted a partner in her life. This is the place where my client meets me. This is the place where my client comes into my coaching. So, what had happened with her is she had met this person, and at the start, things were going good. She was he was exactly the kind of guy that she wanted. He was actually showing up for her and doing all these things. But because of her past issues, even though she had worked a lot on herself, because this was getting real, her past issues started getting triggered and she started pushing this person away. Now, how was she pushing this person away? So, a lot of times we push people away that we love just to test if they will fight for us. So, we often, without even knowing, start being rude. We start being snappy. We sometimes pull away. We sometimes don't text them back and do all these things, right? In our logical mind, we aren't able to understand why. Because we felt that we had feelings for this person, right? But then when we start pulling away, it's because a part of my mind wants to see if this person will take that extra leap for me. Because in my mind, if someone would like me or I would like someone, I would do that. So in her past, this is exactly what she was doing. Just realize this. She was constantly taking a leap for someone who was pushing her away. And she felt love while doing that. So she also felt that if I pull away, and someone does that for me, that would mean love, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't actually always mean love. Sometimes it means that I was creating a false definition of what love is supposed to be, right? Obsession from both ends is unhealthy in a relationship. If the other person is also always obsessed with me and also always, letting me do just anything, and we don't have proper boundaries in the relationship, it will not work for either sides. At the start, right now, it can feel like, if my partner is constantly obsessed with me, it would feel great. But in a healthy dynamic, you would want your partner to have a life of his own, to focus on himself too, to have proper boundaries too, because that would inspire both of you to be healthy together in a relationship, right? This is what she was going through, and she eventually pushed this person away a lot. Now, this is where we started first working on first step, not to chase this person, because she was starting to get into this pattern. As soon as this person pulled away, she realized how much she loves him and how much she would want him in her life, and she started chasing him. So the first step was to not chase this person at all, right? We are not really going to go back into the chasing mode. Even if there are some things that we need to work on, chasing is a total non-negotiable. And a big reason why it is because it just doesn't work. So a lot of times when I tell people that you shouldn't chase, they feel that I'm telling it to them because I'm trying to take away something from them. But chasing doesn't work. If your actual goal is to get into a relationship, understand chasing is not really going to get me there. It's only going to make me feel like it's going to get me there, right? So first step we did was we stopped chasing. The second thing that we here started working on is we started working a lot on her perception of men. Now, in her particular situation, for us to work on her perception of men, we first needed to work on her perception of herself, which is self concept. She also got my self concept one on one course. She started working on it, but she needed to work on herself. But why was that important? Why was that crucial? Why was working on herself the foundation of her definition of men? Because the reason that she saw men as these pedestalized figures, as these people who used to treat her wrong, was because she didn't like herself enough at that time. So she thought that men will also not like her in the same way. And even when someone used to give her a little bit of affection and love, she used to start to latch on to it because she felt that it will be taken away, right? So the more we worked on herself, the more her perception of men got better, right? And then we also started to work specifically on her perception of men. Now, note here, I'm not talking about something we did in a week or a month. She was with me for a prolonged period of coaching. I think we worked together for 5 6 months. Now, you don't have to take coaching for 5 6 months if you don't have to. And if you want to, you absolutely can. Coaching or any form of external help is always going to be a luxury that you take, right? It's always going to be extra support that you take. Just like you can go to the gym, but if you take personal training, that's a support that you take. Is it needed? No. Is it helpful? Yes. It is based on what is it that you can offer, right? And what is it that you can actually spend time on. So a lot of people have time as a commodity that they can spend. If they have that, they can learn from videos, they can learn from books, they can learn from teachers, they can learn from success stories like these. If at that time money is a major thing that you have and you don't really want to spend a lot of time learning about it, then you can take expertise help from a coach who is going to give you the cumulative experience of time that they have spent on this topic over a period of time and help you with it, right? So coaching in itself is a luxury a lot of people take. This is where we worked together a lot on this and we got into a very good pattern here. Eventually, this guy automatically started to reach out. He texted her asking her how she is and how are things going. He hadn't heard from her in a while and would want to catch up and talk. This is where they went out on a date, and eventually, after working a lot on their communication, spending a lot of time together, they got into a committed relationship. Now, this is where we stopped talking. This is where me and my client stopped talking because she had achieved her goal of being in a committed relationship with this guy. And not only that, she was also very okay and very open to working on herself by herself because she had developed these tools. This is where the first part of the success story ends. So the second part of the success story starts 6 months from there. Now what happens? What happens in the middle part? So after 6 months, my client texted me. She said that the relationship that she was in was working very well. She said that the foundation of the work that she was doing on herself is something that she had developed, and she was very happy with how the relationship was progressing for her. But she had now developed severe issues when it comes to marriage, because getting into a relationship and surpassing those fears was one thing. But if, since she has been young, all marriages that she has seen has been bad, unhealthy marriages where either one person was cheating or the other person was cheating, she was constantly worried that this is how her marriage would be too. And because of this, she found herself pushing away her partner again. She found herself getting snappy. She found herself trying to blame him and trying to just find out ways so that they can delay her marriage, right? And eventually, after a while, the guy said, okay, if you really want to do that, then let's do it, right? And the guy also pulled away. And she was in a very similar position. It's just that she was still in a relationship, right? So the first thing that here we worked on was I asked her a few questions about marriages. And if you are in a similar boat, this is what you can ask yourself. Why am I worried about being married? If I get married, what is my biggest fear? Do I feel that getting married takes away my independence from me? Do I feel that men or women cheat in marriages? Do I feel marriage is a union, or do I just feel of it as a business contract? These are some questions that you can ask yourself, and the answers that you can write for this will actually be very, very clear on why your marriages are actually pulling away, because you will see that most things will not align with a version of you who would be able to maintain that marriage, right? So this is where we started working a lot on her perceptions of marriages. Her self-work was going good, right? She was already working on herself because this was a foundation that she had developed back when we started working together. So she was still following these practices, still working on herself and still doing all these things, right? She was also worried that my in-laws, what if they treat me wrong? What if they do all these things? What if my mother-in-law is very controlling and all these things, right? Eventually, what happened as we started working on our perceptions and as we started working on her, I also started telling her to get a lot into her feminine energy. Now, what does that mean and why do I use this term? So, we all have masculine and feminine energy inside of us, right? Masculine is the energy of assertiveness, taking control, or taking charge. Feminine energy is the energy of receiving, allowing, getting things in my life. Even in the manifestation process, it's a union and a combination. Any relationship will have a union and a combination of masculinity and femininity, where the masculine energy in a manifestation process is when you do techniques, when you focus on action, when you focus on changing yourself. And the feminine part is when you allow, when you, after taking the action, pause. You don't manipulate, you don't chase, you allow things to come to you. You focus on letting go. You don't try to hurry the how and all these things, right? I also told her to start allowing her to receive. She was very bad at receiving compliments. She was very bad at receiving gifts, right? As she got into this energy of receiving, she saw that people started gifting her things. She started getting a lot of compliments, and she was very open towards it. Eventually, what happened is this guy, they were in a slight no contact, even though they were in a relationship, because they had a fight and things like that. And this is not really that, all this happened under the duration of the coaching, right? So after she was working on that, eventually this guy reached out one day and he said that, hey, I totally get why you have fears about marriage. You know what? Why don't I come with my parents to your house and we can talk between ourselves, we can really talk about ideologies and we can see how our mindset is. This is what she wanted in the first place. But do you see how, when the first time she was constantly pushing him away, constantly trying to convince him, this was not really happening. It all happened when she sat back and allowed herself to receive the results, right? So she started doing that, she started receiving the results, and eventually this guy came. They actually talked, they got into a place where the in-laws started to where the families had a chat, and they eventually decided that it's a good time for them to get married. Now, as they decided that it's a good time for them to get married, they have fixed a date. She has finalized her wedding gown, and they are going to get married soon. So this is how you get from unhealthy relationships to hot and cold relationships to then being in a committed relationship to then being married fully. If you are someone who's also working on these patterns and you are at any point of this journey, pick the thing that you know you need to do. You can learn a lot from my videos, or you can take coaching. If it is from me, that's great. If it is from someone else that you align with, that's great. If whatever you want to do, take help. Make it your purpose to actually work on yourself, because it will allow all the other things and all the other work to come into your life. So I hope that you like this video. I will see you guys in the next video, and have a great day ahead.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and share if you like the video. The link for my one-on-one coaching, my self-help courses, and my free newsletter are in the description box below.